I watched season 6 of Love is Blind on Netflix, and most of you need to stop taking love advice from TikTok because a lot of the hot takes that I've seen online are just insane. So let's talk about them. First of all, my name is Keisha Rice. I am a dating coach and hypnotherapist, and I help women learn how to heal from their unhealthy relationship patterns and to create new ones and be in cherished relationships. And there's a lot of unhealthy patterns in season 6 of Love is Blind, as with all dating reality shows. So let's talk about each of the couples from the least problematic to the most problematic. So if you're into drama, you might want to fast forward a little bit towards the end. We're going to start with, of course, Johnny and Amy, the one couple that actually made it out of season 6 getting married. I really don't have very many notes for them. I mean, obviously, they were the only ones who worked things out. Now, I will say this. One of the concerns that I had about Amy was when she mentioned how attached that she was to her family. When you get married and you form a new family unit, not saying that your the family that you grew up with isn't important. They definitely still are, but it may require you to start setting some more boundaries with them. Like when she talks about the influence that her dad has over her, I think that that is a beautiful thing. I have a close relationship with my father as well, but again, just in general, as you get older, you need to set more boundaries. And also, when you are forging your own family, that is something that you have to work on as well. So, as long as she is aware of that and she's working on that, I think there's no problem. As far as Johnny goes, he's very type A. You can see that he takes the idea of being a provider and head of the household and all that very seriously, maybe a little bit too seriously. I think Amy will help him relax a little bit, maybe enjoy life a little bit more, have a little bit more fun. I get what he was saying about wanting to retire at 50. I also know so many stories of people who worked themselves into an early grave from the stress, right? So, that's something that you want to consider. Also, the other thing that I noticed about them was the whole maturity when it came to the birth control conversation. Like, I get it, Amy's reluctance to use birth control because most forms of birth control or are hormonal, and they do a lot of different things to women's bodies. That's a subject for another video, but you can Google that. That being said, the fact that they kept having this back and forth and the fact that neither of them really seemed to kind of know what was going on until towards the end and they did some Googling, maybe that was just manufactured drama for the show because let's face it, they were a fairly normal couple, which made them also fairly not interesting. um, so maybe that was it. But at the same time, when I got married, for example, right after, our wedding and our honeymoon, one of the first things my husband and I did was make an appointment with a doctor and talk about, family planning, our intentions for, whether we wanted to have kids, how many, when, and because, we decided that we were not going to have any children right away, how we were going to prevent that from happening. So these are things that can be settled very quickly with like a simple doctor's appointment. So it really did take all the drama that they made it out to be. Talking about Kenneth and Brittany, the first red flag for me is that just the fact that they were so young. And I get it. Reality shows are all about doing what needs to be done for the ratings. So part of that is trying to find the most attractive people that they can find to be on the show. It means finding people who are very young. Um, because that adds to the attraction factor. It also adds to the lack of maturity factor, which means that, there's going to be more drama and more interesting things happening. But I believe Brittany was 24, Kenneth was 25. With my clients, I generally tell them that, they should start looking at marriage after the age of 25. Before that, you are still learning a lot about yourself, your brain is still developing, and there's just something so important about taking the time to be intentional and deliberate about having a single season, having a period of time where you were out here dating, learning yourself, discovering yourself, at least having until 25, at least that good 7 years of adulthood is a great starting point for spending that time to know who you are before you become part of a relationship. Just Kenneth being disingenuous the entire time. And we don't know exactly why that is. Now, since the last episode, there have been family members of his that have come out and said that he is gay, and that is why he wasn't interested in Brittany. Um, don't know whether or not that is completely true, but at the very least, he was not genuine with after he and Brittany were spending time together in the Dominican Republic and, after they came back to Charlotte. He was not genuine when he was talking about trying to show how affectionate he was. Brittany kept begging and asking more and more for this affection. And Kenneth kept making it out to be he was just trying to be respectful because they were both Christian and all of that. Here's the thing. I am a Christian woman myself, and I understand how that informs your values, your behaviors, your actions when you're dating. Completely understand the desire to be a virgin until marriage or to be celibate until marriage, to have a period of celibacy. I think those are all very noble ideas. At the same time, from experience, even couples who are not having sex still can have a lot of physical intimacy, can still have that intensity, that passion, can still be engaged in other behaviors besides sex. So when you're in a relationship and you don't have that physical spark at all, you don't have that temptation, that is definitely a red flag, and it's one that Brittany picked up on. I really wouldn't give her if I were to give her advice, I really wouldn't give her very many more notes other than, she's young, she doesn't have a lot of experience with that. And, she clocked it. She said that, they're both Christian, they're both waiting, but she still felt like there should be more more physicality than there was in their relationship, more intimacy than there was in their relationship, and not just, physical intimacy. The way that, like, the second they get to Charlotte, he's constantly on his phone. You don't have that emotional intimacy either. And to not have that and for her to pick up on it, I think was very good on her part. I think she could have pushed it more. And I think that she could have, stood on business a little bit more and been like, hey, this relationship is not working for me. Now let's talk about Laura and Jeremy. I think these two deserved each other. I think they're both terrible people and that they deserved each other accordingly. So let's talk about Laura and talking about lack of maturity. The whole bean dip thing, the fact that she was making that out to be a joke, the fact that she thought it was okay to sexualize a Black woman's body, her telling AD to calm down and relax when that joke happened. She was just in general a very immature, catty type woman. And I don't really have very much sympathy for her and what ended up happening. Um, just also the fact that she lacked accountability. Again, the whole bean dip comment, she tried to put everything on Jeremy and make it out to him being the one in the wrong, um, that he shouldn't have brought up that conversation. If you thought truly that there was nothing wrong with the jokes you were making, then why would you have a problem with someone repeating the jokes? Obviously, you knew that there was an issue with that, right? So, there's also the fact that I really think that she was driven a little bit by ego, and I think that that is the case for a lot of people on this season. We'll get to that with, Chelsea and Jimmy in a second. But, I think that she did a lot of trying to hold on to this relationship just to be like just to say that she won, and just to say that, she was the one who got the man in the end. With Jeremy, I think that he just wanted attention. I think that he dragged on this whole mess because he likes being the center of attention. He likes having women fight over him. And he is one of those men. There's so many men out there who love to keep women around in their lives, even if they're not sleeping with these women, just to have feminine attention constantly surrounding them. And they will do whatever it takes to keep that going, that validation going. Um, and his whole indecisiveness is why he ended up in such a mess with the whole situation with him and Sarah Ann. Sarah Ann, at the end of the day, is a pick me. And just remember that how you get them is how you lose them. The whole thing that she was trying to justify reaching out to Jeremy after, after he had already proposed, like, even if you had heard some rumors that the relationship wasn't going as well, at the end of the day, he was still engaged. And the fact that you would try to reach out and, check and see if there's any hope for you, it just screams desperation. It screams pick me. And also, if you are going to spend so much time chasing after a man, making him the prize, then don't expect to then later turn around and then get that type of cherished treatment that you want because you've already made it clear that like you're in the one down position. Let's talk about Chelsea and Jimmy. Speaking of egos, right? Now, this is where I got the first comment that I said at the beginning of this video about taking love advice from TikTok. Because I have seen so much talk about Chelsea being whiny, being crying, how she's obviously an anxious attachment person, how she was so insecure, and on and on and on. To an extent, these hot takes are valid and they are correct. They just don't go far enough. So, yes, Chelsea may have cried too much, she may have whined too much, she may have been very immature. If she were a client of mine, one of the first things I would want to work with her is on learning how to control your emotions because I believe that vulnerability is a beautiful thing. You also have to be intentional about when and how you were vulnerable. I believe that expressing your emotions is also a beautiful thing. Again, being intentional about when and how. She could have given her concerns to Jimmy. She could have expressed how she felt, and she could have done so in a way that was calm, in a way that was mature, and she could have also done it from a place of strength and empowerment. There was a lot of back and forth about Jimmy getting mad at her because she was saying things on camera that he wanted to keep secret, which, one, if you go on a reality show, people are going to blow up your spot. So I don't know what he was thinking. But at the same time, she really could have respected that. The cameras were not rolling 24/7. They could have had conversations when the camera crew wasn't there. Um, and at the same time, a lot of her behavior that came across as insecure was really hypervigilance. Chelsea said during the show that she had a history of being with partners who had cheated on her. I would imagine she has a history in general of other relationships in which there is betrayal because all relationships are related. You show me a woman who has issues with her dating life, she also has issues with her family members, with friends, coworkers, and a lot of them all come down to the same sort of things. Um, Being betrayed, um, abandonment issues, lack of boundaries, they all manifest themselves in all of your relationships, right? So, because Chelsea has a history of being cheated on, she can clock the signs. And because she can clock the signs, when that happens to her, she acts out. So you see it as her being, whiny, insecure, crying. What it is discernment. It's just discernment that's not displayed in a healthy way. Chelsea has to come to realize that one, her gut instincts are correct, and she should be proud of those. She also needs to come to realize that at the end of the day, she is going to be fine, that she is good. She is good if she's in a happy, healthy relationship. She is going to be good if she is single. And if she's in an unhealthy relationship, she's going to be good because she's not afraid to walk and to leave. And once she gets to that place, then I really think she has a better chance of being in a good relationship. One of the things that was really impressed upon me watching the show is when Chelsea met Jimmy's family and they were asking her why she did the experiment. And she made a point talking about how she had done work on herself and how she was secure in who she was in a person, in who she was as a person. And it's very clear that she was not just from the way that she acted out, but also even look in the pods. I think that, not actually think, I know Chelsea and Trevor would have been a better match. You know, we can't know because she didn't choose him. But I know that what they would have had would have been better than what she had with Jimmy. And she knew it too. Trevor knew it too. He clocked it. He asked if he had been the one to propose first, which she had said yes. He asked why would she choose Jimmy when Jimmy was actively debating between her and another woman? And she never had a response for that. The truth is, at the end of the day, Chelsea wasn't seeking love. She was seeking validation. And she saw Jessica, she saw how beautiful she was, even though, of course, at the time, the men couldn't see how beautiful Jessica was. And she wanted the validation of being chosen over someone who looked like Jessica, because she herself was still struggling with body image issues and with the way that she looked. Jimmy very much comes off as the type of guy who didn't get a lot of attention from women earlier, and this idea of having two women fighting over him is something that was very attractive to him. And also, he is the type to search for status. So you saw it when he thought that Chelsea looked like Megan Fox. And I will say for the record, like, yes, completely different body than Megan Fox, but she did have the hair color and eye color type, and she does have the bone structure. So it's not, completely 100% out there. But that being said, when he heard that she looked like Megan Fox, he ran with it. He saw himself as, you know, he was going to be able to finally get a woman like that, and then he'd be the envy of all of his friends and everything. And then when they met in person and he proposed, he was disappointed because it was a loss of the status that he thought that he was going to get. And once that happened, that's when he was really more focused on whether or not he made the wrong choice and should have gone with Jessica instead. Beyond that, you know, Jimmy was just manipulative, and he knew that he was dealing with someone who was insecure with Chelsea. Again, I kind of think not that they were a good match, but I do think, again, just like Laura and Jeremy, in a way, they kind of deserved each other because Chelsea was out here seeking validation by being the chosen one. Jimmy was out here seeking validation by being the chosen one. And at the end of the day, you can't make someone act right. So as far as Chelsea's concerned, it doesn't matter. There was an interview that she gave recently where she was talking about how she was trying to act as a wife for Jimmy and that the cameras didn't really show that, how she was cooking meals and doing laundry and all that and showing him everything that she was going to be as a wife. And it's sweet. You can do all of that, but you can't make someone love you by giving them more and more things that they don't appreciate. What Jimmy sought was status. What he sought was an ability to control. What he sought was to be able to take Chelsea's insecurities and use them against her. And that is what you saw play out, not him loving her because she decided to be the image of what she thought a wife should be. And of course, that brings us to AD and Clay. My heart really goes out to AD. And in fact, I think I might do a separate video um just dedicated to AD because there's a lot to unpack with her story. But the main thing that I want to hammer in on AD in this video is her feeling of unworthiness. So, the thing about the way the human mind works is most of what we believe about love, money, relationships, all these different things, most of the stuff is formed between the ages of birth and 7. So we end up walking around in our 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old, and so on bodies, and we still have the mind in a lot of ways of a 6-year-old. And when you look at AD and Clay and both, and they talk about their childhood, there's all these things that have them feeling like they have to work hard to be validated and to be proven as worthy of love, of attention, of fame, success, whatever, to be proven as worthy. And you constantly see AD herself admitting to it that she has, I think it's a good thing that she has the self-awareness. Now is a matter of putting in the work because AD herself said that she is Captain Save-A-Ho. Her words, that she is Captain Save-A-Ho. And you see this in who she chose. And I'm not talking about just Clay, I'm talking about Matthew as well. Matthew was the guy who absolutely sucked in the pods because he could not talk and hold decent conversations to save his life. And AD took it upon herself to get him to talk and to bring him out of his shell. And then once he started talking and everything, that made her feel validated. Yay, she saved the day. She saved him. And you could see that she was thinking about when he was talking about leaving in the pods, she was actually considering going with him because it would have been her rescue story. She found the shy guy who couldn't talk, got him to come out of his shell. They get married. She saves the day and they live happily ever after. When that doesn't work out for her, she ends up doing the same thing with Clay. Clay goes on and on about how, he needs someone to take care of him. He needs someone to love him for who he is, even though he himself says that he can't love someone without knowing how they look, that he didn't think that he was actually going to find love on the show because he couldn't see how they looked, which why would you go on a show called Love is Blind? But anyways, um, even though he said those things, he still kept saying, "Well, maybe you can save me. Maybe you can make me feel good about myself. You can look beyond like all the superficial stuff." And notice he kept telling AD that he wanted her to look beyond the superficial stuff while he would bring up the superficial stuff. He'd be like, "Yeah, I'm good looking. I'm accomplished. I was a college athlete. Shout out to my Gamecocks. I did go to the same college. Um, you know, I'm all this. I have money. I have all these accomplishments, but I want you to look past that. Even though I keep bringing it up, I want you to look past that." So, as far as AD goes, her main thing is she needs to learn how to rescue herself. Once she learns how to feel worthy without the validation of others, she would be a force to be reckoned with because she's already, she's beautiful, she's quick-witted, she's smart, she's successful. She has all of these things. Again, talking about that whole bean dip comment with Laura, um, talking about the whole Chelsea too, trying to, use her insecurities to attack another woman the way that she pointed out Jeremy's stat comments and all of that. The way that she handled that with grace, again, AD is a type of woman who could really, you know, I don't want to like sound hyperbolic by saying change the world, but she really could have like a great influence, and I really think that she could have like a great relationship with someone who would truly treat her well and cherish her. But because she doesn't feel worthy of it, she keeps putting herself in situations where she has to prove her love and her worth, even when she doesn't want to, and even when she knows that she shouldn't. At first, when Clay was pressing her on how she looked, she kept saying over and over again that she wasn't going to do that. That wasn't the point of the show. But no, the second they saw each other, she was constantly trying to show off how she looked, show off her body. She was constantly basking in any comments that he made about her looks. On their wedding day, she's walking down the aisle, and it's supposed to be like this beautiful, joyful moment that's about a divine connection. And instead, he's making comments about like how she looks in her dress, and she's just eating that up. Like, I wish my husband would have acted like that and I walked down the aisle. He would have gotten a face full of flowers, you know? Like, it was so inappropriate. But for her, any validation is good validation. And Clay played into that. He kept making sure that all of his comments were about her looks because he wanted her to feel only worthy for that. Because here's how that plays out down the line. When inevitably she gets older, or she gets pregnant, she has children, and pregnant women gain weight and things like that, he'll use that as an excuse to cheat. He'll use that as an excuse to devalue her, to treat her as less than, because their entire relationship, he's made it about the only worth she has is her looks. So if her looks are altered in any way, and no, I'm saying altered, not that they're worse, because she could look absolutely beautiful pregnant. Uh, as she ages, she could still look really great. But because it'll be different than how they met, he'll use that against her. Clay, on the other hand, and here I think is the true test of how much AD has grown, whether or not she decides to take him back after the whole disaster at the wedding. Because Clay goes on and on about how he's going to improve himself, how he's going to get better, how he's going to do the work, but he never gets concrete on how he's going to do the work because he's not. Now, I want to be very careful with how I say this because some of y'all like to be armchair psychologists and diagnose people. Narcissism is a condition. It has to be medically diagnosed. So let's not run around calling everybody and their mama a narcissist, okay? I will say, though, that he exhibits some narcissistic traits, Clay does. And I will say that that is also not unusual because look at his dad. Oftentimes, when you have a parent who acts that way, especially if it's the same sex parent, then their child will also turn out to be the same way. And this is what you see with Clay over and over again. He is constantly talking about himself, making everything about himself. And most of the time, he doesn't seem to be aware of the other needs of people. So you see AD constantly running around, wondering like how she can make things better, telling Clay constantly, I got you, it's us. We're in this together, looking out for Clay's needs. She was talking to her mom about like making a basket and, having questions and planning a romantic night for them together. And he just doesn't show up. He stays, out at work all night at one of his Airbnb locations or whatever. And, the scene um, where where AD meets Clay's mom. I was trying to think whose mom it was that we are talking about. The scene where AD meets Clay's mom. Like AD is clearly cold, and Clay doesn't seem to notice until his mom hands over a shawl for her to put over herself. And it's just things like that. He constantly talks about doing the work and being better, but then he'll turn around and say, like, I need you to validate me. I need you to do this for me. I need you to make me feel better about myself. He kept talking about how he just needed like someone to mommy him and someone to, cuddle with and all of that. Clay's not doing the work because he doesn't want to do the work. He wants someone else to make him into a better man, to just magically make him the man that he's supposed to be. And because the way AD is, the way she's wired and programmed and how she acts, she tries so hard to do that and it's not going to work. Back to Chelsea, like you can't make someone act a certain way or be a certain way by giving them more of what they don't appreciate. And Clay keeps saying he needs this validation, but he doesn't appreciate it because the fact is, his entire life, there have been people around to validate him. He's never had to worry about that. So even if AD gives it, he doesn't truly appreciate it because he knows that if she leaves, somebody else will come along and do it. His mother, um, other family members, his friends, another woman, he's not that worried about it. And until he gets to a point where he really truly wants to seek that within himself, he's not going to change. So as far as AD goes, I think that there is genuinely hope for her, but until she works on her self-esteem, until she works on finding ways to validate herself other than looks, then that's not going to change for her either. And I do think that she has a good start, talking about the background of being a dancer and that being so image focused and uh, having to keep your body a certain way to meet those requirements. The fact that she's moved into entrepreneurship, owning a business, I do think that those things will be boost for her confidence, for her self-esteem, finding the victories that have nothing to do with her looks. So that is my analysis of the couples on season 6 of Love is Blind. Let me know what you think in the comments and also stay tuned because, again, I do want to talk more about AD specifically as a Black woman, but we will save that for the next video.